Morning, guys. The sun's in and out at the moment. We've had a few days of rain. Yesterday was pretty sunny, so I did some power weeding yesterday in the beds, and they're looking good after the 3 days of rain, which usually happens at this time of year. Things start moving, once they sprout, the seedlings they start really moving. And doing a bit of strimming today, strimming it softly. So I'd just like to talk about the UK cost of living crisis, because you see a lot about that on there, and I've got kind of mixed feelings and opinions about the crisis and everything. I'm looking at the figures, and actually from experience about being there and knowing what the wages are and that. And I think a lot of people for a long time have been living above the means and taking advantage of very low lending rates, and they've got themselves maxed out on credit, and then just a small increase then is going to tip them and start making things go south for them, because they don't live within the means. I'm not talking about people who. There are people who genuinely struggle, and a lot of people live on benefits as well. If you see the cost of living crisis, like, and watch something like off Channel 4, it doesn't take long to realise that these people, they're not even working, half of them. So they're going to be struggling. I don't think anything should be ever designed on benefits where you just lead the same life as everybody else. That might be a bit extreme for some people, but why should people be able to live on benefits? That's not what they were put in place for in the first place. They were a safety net, and never designed to live a full comfortable life on. But anyway, that's another story. So, is there a crisis, a cost of living crisis? Well, things have gone up. There's no doubt about that, and a lot of it was self-inflicted through Brexit, and where the things that they were describing, like opening up all these new trade routes, and they were describing the 1800s, with tobacco and molasses and the empire, dealing with New Zealand, which they still do actually. So that wasn't going to be a new route anyway. So all of it, what they were describing, was never really going to happen, and there was really no need for the extremity. I don't think they could have changed things within the EU, but that's another aspect, and also the energy the energy hikes, and they all blame it on Russia and all the rest of it. But if you really follow what really happened, it was actually Europe who cut themselves off from sanctions and things like that, which haven't worked anyway, because Russia's about the cheapest place for goods and services, and also energy. Their energy is pennies, peanuts, including the gasoline and diesel. So that was self-inflicted. And the UK always said they didn't rely on Russia until they did. That was strange. All of a sudden, it affected them. That was a strange one. And they're cutting all this net zero, and that's costing a lot of people a lot of money, and blowing up power stations and all stuff like that. A lot of bad choices. down the decades, and I don't think it'll all end well. And paying people not to farm, paying farmers not to farm, and stuff like that. It's all accumulating, I think, and into a big storm cloud. And so the actual cost of living crisis, I just had a look at a few figures there. And I'm only talking about the average. So if you look at the average debt and the average wage, you should be talking about the same people, average people, right? So the average household debt, they reckon now, is £66,000. And I thought it was a bit more than that a few years ago, but maybe they work it out differently now. That's what they tend to do. There's various ways and means of calculating things to suit what number you want at the end. Anyway, 66,000. That's the average, and the average wage, actually real wage, what you take home in your pocket. Average. I'm not talking about low wages. I'm not talking about high. The average is £2,700, £2,700 a month. That's the average wage. So if you look at the average debt, which is 66,000, and some of that's credit card debt, which is very high interest now. So that could have been one thing that's caused this people to start struggling, because their interest has gone up on the credit cards, so it's more expensive to pay it back. I don't know whether that, if you already had debt, it when the interest goes up, you owe more on the credit cards, because I don't know much about them. I just know that they're a good thing not to have. The first thing that you don't want to have if you're frugal is a credit card. And I've never had one. I had one when I was a student. I didn't use it. And ever since, if I ever get a credit card, ever since I was like 19, 20, 21, when a credit card comes through, I just cut her in half, because that's not that. Because I could see it even then, the APR, if you work it out. And it's the same with this 66,000. That's not what you owe. That's what you owe. If you paid it off today, that would be your debt. But that's not what it is. So if you work out, say, the average term, that's going to be for, most of that's mortgage. And the average term, let's say it's 15 years to pay it back, right? You don't owe 66,000, because mortgages are also APR, although not as high as credit cards, obviously, and other things. But it's still substantial over a period of time. The longer the period, obviously. So the payments on 66,000 at 7%, call it 7%, and that rounds off the mean between credit cards and all the other types of debt and loans, and which are all in this sum, in this 66,000. So let's call it a mortgage at 7%, and let's say 15 years left, right? So the repayments would be about £570, something like that, on 66,000 for the next 15 years. So that still leaves, if your take home pay is 2,700, and a lot of homes have got two people working as well, don't forget, or one part-time at least, and one full-time. So 2,700, you've still got over £2,000 left for the rest of the month. So can you survive on that? I could easily, probably, even after paying the 500. No, I would still think it's manageable. you know. But you'd have to stop doing certain things, like I did years ago, like television. Don't buy any television, or don't buy Netflix, or don't buy newspapers, and this all adds up. You know, the frugal world, everything adds up, and you cut out everything that you don't need. And one of them is credit cards, because all they do, they just compound. If you've got enough to pay them off, then you've got enough not to have one in the first place, you know. And mortgages, people in the UK, they tend to like upscale as they go through the years. They tend to try and upscale rather than downsize. Now, I would say upscale up to, like, you know, maybe peak fitness at 30, 35 years old. Then you want to be downscaling after that. I think downsizing, looking to get rid of things. And I would certainly say you need to be in the black when you get to about over 50. You don't want to be in all kinds of debt right up to the end, kind of thing. I would say you need to be where you want to be by about 55. Have some savings even at that stage, you know, or passive incomes, some assets and stuff like that. And anyone on an above average wage should easily be able to do that. I started on zero in about 1998. I came back from a divorce, and I was living abroad, so I just left the property and everything. We didn't split it or anything like that. I just started from zero, which worked out okay in the end. And I started from zero, so my financial life is only about 26 years old, right? And I started from naught, and I've done okay. And I've even only worked sort of part-time or half the year, and during the last before 2020, 6 years previous to that, I was only working half the time in the UK and living in a caravan. So that's another thing. I didn't have all the housing, and I did okay actually about out of property in the early 2000s. But I used it to good effect. I used it to invest abroad, and I used it to invest in other things as well, which I won't mention here, in case the taxman's watching. Just joking. Don't come looking for me. So is it like so much a cost of living crisis, or did people overstretch themselves? And I would say it was a bit of both. At the lower end of the scale, where people would be just about managing anyway, you know, probably these hikes now will send them into struggle automatically. But other people who've been earning decent money and had two wages coming in quite often, you know, they shouldn't be struggling like they say they are, you know. So that they're the ones who chase the debt, get into as much debt as possibly can. They get a bigger, expensive car that they can. They get an expensive house when they don't really need to be upscaling as you go on, especially if you're doing it on a mortgage, you know. It's okay if your house increases in price, you sell it and use it, you know, do it that way on a ladder. But people don't. They get more credit, even if they make a bit on the house. They'll upscale again on the mortgage. I know a few people have done that. So, and now they've they've caught a cold, it's caught them out, you know. But that's just my opinion. And I would say to anyone, if you want to get out of that cycle, you can't just. A lot of people could just sell up and downscale, move abroad, do whatever it takes, you know. Live on a barge, live in a caravan. All these things are great. I've done them all, and they're exciting, you know, as well. And especially living here in the mountains, it's great, fantastic. You know, you're already here. you're already on holiday, as it were. But yeah. But if you're careful with the figures and your money and everything, you shouldn't be struggling. If you're on the average wage or above in the UK, you know, the cost of living's, you know, standard of living. Yeah, you might get a little bit of a drop, but like you've had it probably too good. We had a good run in my generation. We had a good run. It wasn't always like that, and I don't think it always will be like that. Especially looking at the USA as well. I reckon they're in a right mess. That's another story as well. I think they're in their social decay, especially, and stuff like that. But anyway, that's just my kind of feelings. It's not advice how to get out of it or how you got into it, but it's just a kind of an opinion on, you know, is it all the economy and the government's fault? And I don't think it is altogether. Some of it is, some of it isn't. Okay, that's just my opinion on this one, and I hope it makes sense. Cheers.